Welcome to the Tech Lead Coaching Network podcast. This is episode number 25. My name is Michael Rice, and the Tech Lead Coaching Network is an informal, community-based, open-source network of tech leads where we support each other through in-person workshops and peer-to-peer, one-to-one tech lead coaching, all free and volunteer-based. We focus on the tech lead role, that first-level leadership position, which you find a lot in software engineering, but you can also find in related fields like systems engineering, security, QA, data science, and etc. We focus on it because it's just a terribly hard role for most people. You're making a transition from an individual contributor to having to navigate all these complicated, unpredictable humans and yet still be really technical. Worse, you probably aren't getting enough support or training in the role. So I wanted to build this community to support each other. You might be listening because you want to be a tech lead, you are a tech lead, or you manage tech leads, to name just 3 reasons. We do these podcasts with the hope that it will be a useful thing for community members to stay involved and feel connected, but also for a little marketing and to share some ideas broadly. Today is Friday, March 22nd, 2019. You made it to Friday, tech leads, and today I want to talk more about leadership moments. Way back at the beginning, on episode number 1, I started off this podcast with the idea that leadership is what you do in any given moment. It's not a role, it's not a job title, it's an act. And you often don't get to control the circumstances where you have a leadership moment to step into. While you hear plenty of people draw distinctions between management and leadership, I don't hear anyone else talking about leadership as simply repeatedly stepping into leadership moments. So I hope this makes you think a little bit differently about your role as a tech lead. Here's an example of what I mean. Let's say you're a senior engineer in a conference room along with 3 other engineers. There's also a tech lead, a director of product, and an engineering manager. So there's 7 people in total, 4 engineers, and 3 people with manager/leadership titles. In this meeting, they are talking about some upcoming features to add to the code base that you primarily work on. This is primarily your code base. The tech lead, the engineering manager, and the product manager are negotiating what features are up next for development. Nobody is standing at the whiteboard, and there are whiteboard pens that actually work sitting on the desk. And nobody knows this code base as well as you do, including the current tech lead, but it's a relatively large meeting, and you're a little nervous about speaking up. Unfortunately, however, some of the things that the current tech lead and the engineering manager are saying are just wrong. And you know how to correct it, and you know how to correct some of the stuff going on in this meeting. So this is what I mean. There's a moment where you can step up. This is a moment where you can walk up to that whiteboard. You don't have to have the title. You don't have to have the formal role. But you have to have the knowledge to lead these folks through the issues. And if you have that knowledge and the insight, there are 2 more questions to ask. 1, are you going to step into that moment? And 2, do you have the skills and capabilities you need once you do? Let's pause there for a second. I want to totally change the context for a minute. I remember I read a lot of random stuff about leadership, and I came across a post about how to be an effective leader of police departments, like the cops. So you can imagine that the police find themselves in many situations far more stressful than your anxiety about speaking up in a corporate conference room. The way they manage that, according to this one author, is to do 3 things really well. 1, do the basic administrative stuff. Maybe the analog here is make sure you know your technical stuff. 2, they do a lot of training and practice for hard situations. And 3, make sure that when you're in a tough spot, as the first line of the fight or whatever engagement you're in, that you're able to, quote, make good, timely decisions with imperfect or incomplete information in moments of stress. I like that because you can, in the world we find ourselves in, we don't do much to prepare for those moments. And we obviously don't find ourselves as software engineers in any of these like life-threatening situations that police find themselves in. But I thought it was a great analogy to think about the fact that we can't control the moments when they come up, but that we can be prepared for it. So to come back to that moment in the conference room, I think whether you feel confident to step into that conversation, and maybe more importantly, whether you're going to be effective if you do step into it, has everything to do with how much you prepared and trained yourself for it. This is a leadership moment to step into. It just comes up. And this is where you can make a difference even if you don't have a formal leadership role. I think sometimes we get so caught up in images of huge leaders like Steve Jobs, or even one of my new favorites, Satya Nadella over at Microsoft, and the big showy presentations like Steve Jobs' dramatic and well-scripted demos, that we overlook that they develop those big leadership skills in the small micro moments, probably like this one that I just described. And as a volunteer-based organization, I want the Tech Lead Coaching Network to help you step into those moments and, more importantly, be really impactful when you're there. So just a lightweight podcast for get your weekend started. Remember, leadership is not a title or a role so much as it's a moment you step into. The primary questions are going to be, are you going to step into them? And 2, do you have the skills and capabilities to have an impact if you do? Our volunteer community wants to help coach you with both of these. We're on a mission, Tech Leads. Our mission is to increase the happiness and effectiveness of our community members. No matter where you are in your Tech Lead journey, I want you to consider joining us. You can join online at techleadcoaching.com. As I say, it's free, and you can join at the lurker level if you just want to stay in touch, get weekly email updates, and other interesting tidbits. There are other levels too, like the coach or Tech Lead levels when you're ready. So join however you're comfortable, but I hope you'll join us. Thanks so much for listening. Hope you found today's episode helpful or at least interesting. Glad you're on the journey with us. Subscribe to this podcast. Give us an awesome rating if you can so we can reach more people, and have an amazing weekend, Tech Leads.